I knew something was going to shift between us the moment I saw only one bed in the cabin. Not in a dramatic, earth-shattering way. Just something, like the quiet tug of a tide you don't notice until you're knee-deep and swaying with it. We'd been planning this weekend for months, a cabin trip in the woods, just the two of us, before life swallowed us up again. Cam had just wrapped a soul-killing stretch at the firm. I'd finally pushed through the last week of a gallery install I couldn't care less about. So we promised, no phones, no work talk, just beers, firewood, and hiking boots. And maybe, though I never said it aloud, maybe a chance to feel close to him again. Closer than I was supposed to want. Cam and I met in college, roommates turned best friends through bad hangovers, long nights of shared silence, and 1,000 stupid inside jokes we still recycle years later. He's the kind of guy who wears the same beat-up denim jacket he's had since freshman year, the one with the coffee stain on the cuff. He claims it's aesthetically tragic. I've told him it just smells like him now, cedar, cinnamon gum, and something warm I can't name. I regret saying that sometimes he just laughed, eyes crinkling like he didn't hear the catch in my voice. The cabin was his idea. Said we needed to touch grass before turning 30. It's tucked away near a lake upstate, just far enough from the city that the air smells like pine and wet stone instead of exhaust. It's quiet here. Too quiet. Maybe for someone who's been trying hard not to think. When I set my duffel down and turned to the single bed pushed against the far wall, I pretended not to notice. Cam didn't mention it either, just dropped his bag next to mine and grinned like it was no big deal. But I saw the flicker in his eyes. Like he knew it was a question neither of us was ready to answer. Still, it was easy to play along. We built a fire, cracked open beers, and settled into the familiar rhythm of us, him teasing me for burning the marshmallows, me throwing pine cones at his boots. Comfortable. Safe. But every time our shoulders brushed or he leaned a little too close to show me something on his phone, I felt the edge of something electric press against my skin. Something was shifting. And I wasn't sure I was ready for it. But I couldn't stop it either. Cam and I go way back, 8 years to be exact. We met the first week of freshman year, crammed into a too-small dorm room with peeling posters and one broken desk chair. He was chaos incarnate, messy-haired, barefoot, blasting some obscure indie band at 2 a.m. I was the opposite, organized, anxious, always folding things that didn't need folding. Somehow we just clicked. We made each other better, or at least more tolerable. He got me to skip classes for road trips and midnight donuts. I made sure he remembered to pay rent and didn't burn down the kitchen experimenting with pan-seared cereal. When I had my first real heartbreak, he sat with me on the fire escape for hours, passing back and forth a flask and not saying much. Just being there. That's always been the thing about Cam. He shows up, not with grand gestures or flowery words, but in the quiet, consistent ways that matter more. Now, years later, nothing much has changed, except maybe everything. Hey, Cam called from the bathroom, toothbrush in hand. You packed my sweatshirt, right? I glanced up from my spot on the bed, pretending to scroll through my phone. You mean the one I told you to bring yourself? Twice. He popped his head around the doorframe, toothpaste foam at the corner of his mouth. Knew I could count on you. I rolled my eyes and tossed the worn hoodie at his face. It hit him with a satisfying thwop. He just grinned, pulling it on without wiping the toothpaste off. Still smells like your detergent. I froze for half a second, just long enough for the silence to feel weighted. He didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, and he was better at hiding it. We spent the morning hiking a muddy trail that looped around the lake, the air thick with the promise of rain. The sky was already bruising with clouds by the time we made it halfway, but Cam insisted it would blow over. It didn't. We were about 20 minutes from the cabin when the sky opened up, fat drops soaking through our jackets almost instantly. "This is your fault," I shouted over the downpour, laughing as I slipped on a patch of wet leaves. "Don't blame me for nature's wrath," Cam said, grabbing my elbow to steady me. His hand lingered there a beat longer than it needed to. Warm. Solid. We jogged the rest of the way back, shoes squelching, hair dripping, breathless with laughter. By the time we tumbled through the cabin door, we were soaked to the skin. Cam peeled off his hoodie and shirt in one smooth motion, tossing them over a chair near the fireplace. I tried not to stare. Failed, obviously. He caught my gaze and smirked slightly, water still dripping from his curls. "Like what you see?" "Please," I scoffed, turning away too quickly. "I've seen better. On nature documentaries." That made him laugh deep and easy. But my ears were burning. While he disappeared to change, I busied myself with drying off, only to realize something annoying once I opened my duffel bag. "Cam," I called. He re-emerged in sweats, towel draped around his neck. I left my dry clothes in the trunk." He blinked. Seriously? Seriously. Outside, the rain showed no signs of letting up. Cam shrugged and moved to the dresser, pulling out a pair of his flannel pajama pants and a faded t-shirt with a cracked Star Wars logo. "Here," he said, tossing them to me. "They'll probably swallow you, but I'm told oversized isn't right now." I held the clothes in my hands, softer than I expected, worn from years of use. They smelled like him. "Thanks," I muttered, throat tight with something I couldn't name. "No problem," he said, flashing that easy smile again. "Just don't get too attached. Sentimental value and all." "Too late," I said under my breath. He didn't hear me. I wasn't sure I wanted him to. That night, the rain didn't stop. It turned heavier, thunder rumbling low through the trees, wind scratching against the cabin windows like it had a score to settle. I'd always liked storms, watching them from behind glass, dry and wrapped in a blanket, safe. But this one felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting. Cam tossed another log onto the fire and turned toward me, rubbing his hands together. "Well, no stargazing tonight." "Tragic," I said, voice quieter than I meant. We were sitting on the floor near the hearth, half a game of cards abandoned between us. The lights flickered once, then came back strong. I told myself the clench in my chest was nothing. He stretched out, back resting against the couch, legs almost brushing mine. I could feel the heat of him, the space between us shrinking even when we weren't moving. Outside, lightning lit up the room for a moment, turning his face sharp and soft all at once. I stared too long. Again. "You okay?" he asked suddenly, brow furrowing. I blinked and looked away, pretending to reorganize the scattered cards. "Yeah, just tired." "Sure it's not because I'm destroying you at Go Fish?" "You're literally not," I muttered, but the smile came without trying. He nudged my knee with his foot, casual and warm. "You've got that overthinking face on. The one that means you're either mentally redesigning my entire life or spiraling about something you won't tell me." "Wow," I said, laughing once. "Nailed it." He shrugged. "Been decoding your weird little mood since college. It's practically a second language now." My chest tightened. That was the problem. He knew me too well, saw too much, but never the thing I most wanted him to. Or maybe he did, and just didn't say anything. The power went out half an hour later, right in the middle of a lightning flash. Everything blinked into darkness. No lights, no fridge hum, just the crackling fire and the hiss of rain against the roof. "Well," Cam said after a beat, "that's cozy." I got up and fumbled for my phone's flashlight. Could be out for hours. Probably the lines got hit. "We'll survive," he said, too calm. "Worst case, we ration trail mix and start a new civilization. First law of Camtopia. Shirtless Wednesdays." He grinned at me in the dark. "You remember." "I remember too much," I said before I could stop myself. The silence that followed was thick. He didn't say anything, but I saw him watching me, firelight catching the amber in his eyes. We cleaned up the card game by flashlight and brushed our teeth in awkward quiet. The cabin suddenly felt smaller, the shadows deeper. When we returned to the bedroom and that single bed, the weight of it finally hit me. Cam stood at the doorway, towel around his shoulders, looking at it too. "So, there's only one," I said, pointing out the obvious like an idiot. "Yeah." He didn't suggest the floor. Neither did I. Instead, we both just moved. I changed in the bathroom, too fast, hands shaking a little, and when I came out, Cam was already under the blanket, facing the wall. You good if I gestured awkwardly. Yeah, he said quickly. Come on. Not the first time we've shared a bed. No, it wasn't. But it was the first time it felt like this. I slid in beside him, tense and uncertain, trying to keep to my side. The bed wasn't small, but it wasn't big either, and the heat from his body was immediate. Minutes passed. The rain got heavier. I could feel the shape of him next to me, every shift of his legs, the rise and fall of his breathing. I was hyper-aware of everything, the way the blanket brushed my arm, the fact that my shoulder was only inches from his back, the occasional creak of the cabin adjusting around us. You cold? He asked suddenly. My breath caught. No. You? Nah, a pause. You're doing that thing again. What thing? The not talking thing? I swallowed. Nothing to say. He rolled to face me. I felt the shift in air before I saw his silhouette in the dark, inches from mine. Bullshit, he said softly. You've been weird all weekend. I stared at the ceiling. You've been casual about it. Casual about what? I hesitated. The words hovered on my tongue, fragile and terrifying. This. Us. I don't know. The bed. Everything. A beat of silence. I didn't think it was weird, he said, voice low. Maybe that's the difference between us. Another pause. Then something brushed against my hand, his fingers tentative and searching. I didn't move. He said, voice barely audible over the storm. Sometimes I wonder if you're waiting for me to say something, and I don't know what scares me more, that you're not, or that you are. My throat was dry. Cam. He shifted again, closer this time, our forearms touching. Just tell me. If I'm wrong, if I'm reading this wrong, just say it. I can take it. My chest ached. I couldn't breathe. You're not wrong, I whispered. And in the quiet that followed, the storm raged on. There was a stillness after I said it. You're not wrong. That felt louder than the thunder outside. Cam didn't move. Neither did I. It was like the air between us had thickened, charged with every unsaid thing we'd carefully danced around for years. You mean that? He asked eventually, voice small. It wasn't like him. Cam was never hesitant. Never quiet like this. I nodded, even though he probably couldn't see it in the dark. Yeah, I whispered. I mean it. He exhaled, a shaky sound that hit me straight in the chest. For a moment, he just lay there, both of us facing each other in the narrow bed. My heart was pounding like I'd sprinted uphill. I wanted to say more, wanted to explain everything at once. How long I'd felt this way, how hard I'd tried to hide it, how scared I'd been that wanting more would destroy what we had. But the words tangled in my throat, snagged on the weight of years. Cam spoke first. I've been waiting for you to say something, he said quietly. For so long. I blinked, disoriented. You have? Yeah, he said with a laugh that didn't sound happy. God, yeah. I thought maybe I was making it up, that I was just projecting or reading into things that weren't there. You weren't, I said quickly. You weren't making it up. The silence stretched between us again. But it was different this time. Softer. Why didn't you ever say anything? He asked. I looked up at the ceiling, at the faint shadows the fire cast on the wood panels. Because I didn't want to ruin us. Cam was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You didn't ruin anything. I promise. I didn't know how to tell you without making everything weird. I said, voice cracking a little. You're my best friend, Cam. You've always been. And I thought if I said something and you didn't feel the same. I do, he interrupted. His voice was steady this time. I do feel the same. I turned toward him, fully breath-catching. You do. He reached for my hand under the blanket, fingers sliding against mine slowly, deliberately. I don't know when it started. I just know it's been there for a long time. This pull. Toward you. My stomach flipped, something warm and terrifying blooming in my chest. I tried to brush it off at first, he continued. I told myself we were just close. That it was normal to want to spend all your time with someone, to miss them when they're gone. But then you'd smile at me across a room, or say something in that voice you use when you're being careful with me, and it'd hit me like a punch. I felt like I was floating, or drowning, or both. I thought you were out of reach. I said, I thought, I was the only one feeling it. He gave a soft, almost pained laugh. No, you weren't. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The rain softened outside, as if even the storm was listening. Cam's thumb brushed the back of my hand, slow and tentative. Can I ask you something? Anything. He hesitated. What now? I looked at him. Even in the dim light, I could see the vulnerability etched into his features, his open expression, the uncertainty in his eyes. He looked scared, hopeful. I don't know, I said honestly. I mean, I want this, whatever this is, but I'm still scared. Me too. But I'm tired of pretending, I added, heart pounding. Tired of acting like I don't look for you in every room. Like I don't replay your texts in my head or remember the sound of your laugh 3 days after you're gone. Cam shifted closer, our foreheads nearly touching now. I've wanted to kiss you for months. My breath caught. So, why haven't you? I was waiting for the green light, he whispered. I tilted my face toward him, close enough to feel his breath. You have it. There was a beat of stillness. And then he kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft, careful, the kind of kiss that says I know you. I've always known you. His lips pressed against mine like he was afraid I'd pull away, but I didn't. I couldn't. My hand slid up to his cheek, thumb brushing over the edge of his jaw as I leaned into it. It felt like coming home. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine, breath warm and uneven. God, he said. That was... Yeah, I breathed. Yeah. Neither of us moved. I could still feel the ghost of his mouth on mine, the warmth of his fingers against my ribs where he'd touched me. Barely, like I might break. I've been wanting to do that since you wore that stupid red sweater to my sister's wedding, he said, voice muffled against my shoulder. You remember? The one you claimed was festive, but looked like a holiday crime? I laughed, and he did too, soft and sleepy. I remember. You stole my drink that night. I was trying to get your attention. You had it, I said, the words slipping out before I could guard them. You've always had it. Cam pulled back just enough to look at me. His eyes searched mine like he was still trying to believe all of this was real. Tell me this doesn't change everything, I said, quieter now. Tell me we don't lose what we have. He shook his head. We're not losing anything. We're just finally being honest about it. I nodded, because I needed to believe that. He curled into me after that, arms sliding around my waist like it had always belonged there. We lay there in the dark, the storm quieting outside, the fire burning low. I don't know how long we stayed like that, breathing in sync, fingers laced between us, the silence full but not heavy. I felt like my heart was finally allowed to settle into something real, something safe. I don't want to go back to pretending, I murmured. Then don't, he said, voice thick with sleep. Stay here. With me. I'm not going anywhere. Cam exhaled, something deep and content. He pressed a lazy kiss to the side of my neck, so soft it almost didn't register. And just before I drifted off, he whispered, no one ever has to know, unless we want them to. My heart tightened in the best way, because for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I just wanted it with him. I woke up before the sun rose. Cam was still asleep beside me, his face turned toward mine, lips parted slightly, one hand curled near my shoulder, like even in sleep, he didn't want to let go. The fire had long since gone out, the room colder than before, but I didn't move to grab another blanket. I didn't want to leave the warmth between us. Or the quiet. My first thought wasn't panic. It wasn't even doubt. It was just peace. His lashes fluttered a little, then his eyes opened slowly, unfocused and soft. The kind of look I'd seen before after long nights out or lazy Sunday mornings, but never like this. Never when his hand was already in mine. Hey, he murmured, voice hoarse with sleep. Hey, I whispered back. He blinked at me for a moment, then smiled. It was small, unguarded. The kind that felt private, like a secret just for me. Wasn't a dream then, he said. I squeezed his hand. Nope, you actually kissed me. Cam let out a quiet, sleepy groan and buried his face in my shoulder. God, don't remind me. I probably had morning breath. You definitely did, I said, grinning, and I still let it happen. That's love. He laughed into my neck, and I felt it more than heard it. So, we're using the L word already? Bold move. Don't flatter yourself. It was a hypothetical. Cam shifted back, just enough to look at me, smirking. Sure it was. There was a pause. Then I said it quieter. I don't know what happens now. His expression softened instantly. We figure out, one thing at a time. And when we go back to the city, I asked, more hesitant now. When real life kicks in again, Cam rolled onto his back and tugged me with him until my head rested on his chest. We don't have to pretend, if that's what you're asking. I'm not worried about pretending. I don't know how to be like this with you. In public, around people who've only ever known us as best friends, he finished, the inseparable duo. I nodded against his collarbone. He ran his fingers lazily through my hair, soothing. Let them talk. We've always been a little too close, anyway. Might as well give them something real to gossip about. I laughed, even as something in my chest fluttered nervously. We don't have to tell anyone until we're ready, he added more gently. But I'm not hiding this, if that's what you're worried about. I lifted my head, meeting his eyes. You're not. He shook his head. I've hidden feelings for you for years. I'm kind of done with that now. Something caught in my throat. I kissed him again, quick and soft, a thank you without the words. When I pulled back, he looked dazed in the best way. Damn, he muttered. I could get used to that. Only now. I always imagined you were a good kisser, he teased. But imagining and experiencing are two very different things. I rolled my eyes, but my smile betrayed me. You're such an idiot. You're idiot, he said. I didn't correct him. We stayed like that until the sun rose, limbs tangled, voices low, the outside world still distant. When the light finally crept through the window, golden and soft over the wood-paneled walls, Cam shifted and kissed my temple. We should probably get up soon, he said reluctantly. Make coffee. Pretend we're functioning adults. We could also just stay here forever. He grinned. Tempting. But I'd like our forever to include actual breakfast and a working shower. I snorted. You're very romantic. Cam sat up, pulled on a hoodie, and looked down at me. Hey. Yeah. We've got a lot to figure out, but he hesitated, then smiled in that slow, genuine way that undid me every time. I'm in this. With you. For real. I reached for his hand again. Me too. And somehow, with the morning light warming the room and his fingers wrapped in mine, the road ahead didn't seem so uncertain. It just felt like the start of something worth everything. The next morning, Cam cooked breakfast like nothing had changed, messy hair, mismatched socks, and humming along to some terrible 2000s pop song on his phone. And I watched him like everything had. He still flipped the pancakes too early, the way he always did when he got impatient, and I still tease him for it. But when I reached over to wipe batter off his cheek with my thumb, he leaned into my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, like he'd always belonged there. You're staring, he said without looking up. Yeah, well, you got batter on your face. Pretty sure you got that already. He glanced at me sideways, a knowing smile tugging at his lips. Want me to do a twirl while I'm at it? You're clearly enjoying the show. I laughed a little too fondly. Don't tempt me. We sat at the kitchen table afterward, plates scraped clean, coffee mugs between our palms. It felt like a slow morning after a long storm, which, in a way, it was. Cam leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms. He said, I was thinking about the drive back. My stomach tensed slightly. Yeah. He looked at me more serious now. It's going to be weird, right? Going home. Back to pretending. I nodded. I've thought about that too. But I don't want to go back to the way it was, he said, voice low. I don't want this to be some secret we bury the moment we hit the city limits. I looked down at my mug, then back up at him. We don't have to tell anyone. Not until we're ready. But I'm not going to pretend nothing happened. Not with you. He smiled, slow and grateful. Good. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. We were, in ways we'd never dared say out loud before. After we packed up and loaded the car, I found Cam standing at the edge of the driveway, staring out toward the trees. The lake glinted in the distance, the clouds finally breaking open to show a stretch of warm, blue sky. I walked up beside him, our shoulders brushing. "You okay?" He nodded. "Just kind of don't want this to end." "It doesn't have to," I said, and I meant it. He turned to face me, brushing a strand of hair off my forehead. "I'm serious about this," he said. "I want to try. Not just the easy parts. All of it." I swallowed, overwhelmed in the best way. "Then we try." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the small, battered keychain I'd given him in college, the one shaped like a tiny compass, the one he said he'd lost years ago. "I found this in my glove box last month," he said quietly. "I was going to give it back to you, but I kind of like that it's mine now." I smiled, touched. "You kept it all this time?" He nodded. "It always reminded me of you. Of us." He held it out between us. "So, I was thinking maybe this can be our thing. Our reminder." I took it from him and ran my thumb over the worn edges. Then, without really thinking, I looped it through the zipper of my hoodie, the one he always stole when he was cold. "Looks better on you anyway," he said, grinning. And in that moment, standing in the driveway of an old cabin with a faded keychain and too many emotions stuffed between us, I knew we were going to be okay. Not perfect, not without complications, but okay. As we got into the car, Cam reached across the console and took my hand, intertwining our fingers before starting the engine. No hesitation. No glances to see if I'd flinch. Just us. "Ready?" he asked. I looked at him, at the man who'd been my best friend, my quiet ache, and now finally mine. "Yeah," I said. "Let's go home." And we drove off down the gravel path, sunlight filtering through the trees like a promise. This was just the beginning.